Today we're going back over 20 years to cover what's widely considered the most lopsided MLB trade of the 21st century. We'll look at how and why the trade happened, then break down just how bad this trade was for the loser and how good it was and still is for the winner. This is the infamous Bartolo Colon Trade Tree. Strap in, this is going to be a long one. In 2002, the Montreal Expos were in an odd spot, one no other MLB team had faced in over a century. The prior November, MLB had voted to contract both them and the Minnesota Twins, reducing from 30 teams back down to 28. Now, there are conflicting views today on what the actual goal was. Some people argue that it was a negotiation tactic, that MLB never intended to contract either team, but they wanted to strong-arm the two teams' local governments into helping to fund new stadiums. But many people do believe that with MLB's financial struggles at the time, contraction of the two teams was their actual goal and what they really wanted to do. Now, the Twins were forced to honor the end of their lease for the Metrodome by the state courts, which ended up saving both teams for 2002. The Expos only survived because the league didn't want an odd number of teams. MLB ended up buying the Expos in January, and the threat of contraction or relocation at the end of the season was very real. New general manager Omar Minaya, under the beliefs that the Expos were playing their final season in Montreal, wanted to make a run at bringing playoff success to the city. In 1995, the Seattle Mariners had gone on a playoff run, which ended up getting them a new stadium, and Minaya believed if he could put together a strong team that got to the playoffs, they might be able to attract a new owner who could keep the team in Montreal. But as the Expos were owned by MLB, the other teams were essentially able to prevent them from taking on extra payroll. Minaya made a handful of small moves to improve the team's depth, but he was able to package some top prospects for one big swing. Now, before he became the big sexy that we all know and love today, Bartolo Colon was one of MLB's best pitchers. The Indians' ace was an all-star in 1998, he finished fourth in AL Cy Young voting in 1999, and he started on opening day for the Indians every year from 2000 through 2002. Colon got off to an extremely hot start in 2002. Through his first 16 starts, he had a 10-4 record, a 1.72 ERA+, and 4.7 WAR, but the Indians were under 500 halfway through the season. They had been one of baseball's best teams for the last several years, with 6 AL Central wins and 2 pennants in the previous 7 seasons, but general manager Mark Shapiro indicated he was open to moving some of the team's veteran players. He was specifically looking for a trade that would jumpstart the team into a rebuild and could potentially compete 2 or 3 years down the road. And he found one, sending the 29-year-old Colon and the remaining year and a half of his contract to the Montreal Expos. So here's the trade. The Expos got Bartolo Colon and pitcher Tim Drew, and the Indians received first baseman Lee Stevens and 3 of the Expos' top prospects, shortstop Brandon Phillips, outfielder Grady Sizemore, and starting pitcher Cliff Lee. Now, how did the Expos and Colon do? Well, he was solid down the stretch for them. Through 17 starts, he put up a 10-4 record and a 1.29 ERA+. So, very good, but not quite as good as he was in Cleveland to start the year. He pitched 4 complete games, including a shutout, and he put up 2.4 WAR in his 117 innings. But the team as a whole hit a slide. In July and August, they were 7 games under 500. They ended up finishing with an 83-79 record, which was 19 games back of the first-place Braves and 12 behind the Giants for the wild card. Now, the team did get some good news. In August, MLB and the players agreed to a new CBA that explicitly forbade any team contractions for the next 4 years. So contraction was no longer a risk, but relocation still was. And Colon was now just a year away from free agency and due a raise with a 2003 salary of over $8 million. Minaya was under orders from the MLB owners to keep his payroll down, so he traded Colon. Colon was packaged with infield prospect Jorge Nunez and sent to the Chicago White Sox, and the Expos received pitchers Orlando El Duque Hernandez and Rocky Biddle, and first baseman Jeff Leefer. El Duque never made a major league appearance with the Expos. He missed the entire season recovering from shoulder surgery and left as a free agent after the year. Biddle joined the Expos bullpen and spent the next 2 years there. Across 120 innings, he wasn't good. He put up a 78 ERA+, 5.5 FIP, 1.6 WHIP, and minus 2.8 WAR. And after the 2004 season, he was released. Jeff Leefer had spent parts of the last 4 years as a bench bat for the White Sox, and he slotted in as the Expos' backup first baseman. He was terrible. Through 35 games, he slashed 193, 217, 330 for an OPS plus of 38 and minus 1.2 WAR. Now, if you want an idea of how bad those 2003 Expos were, his minus 1.2 WAR was only 4th worst on the team. In June, he was claimed off waivers by the Devil Rays. Now, Tim Drew was the least successful of the 3 Drew brothers. Both of his brothers, JD and Steven, would later win the World Series with the Red Sox, and JD made an All-Star game as well. Tim Drew bounced between Montreal and the minors for the rest of 2002, and he was pretty effective. In 7 appearances, he pitched to a 154 ERA+, 2.9 FIP, and .9 WHIP, putting up positive WAR for the first time in his career. But in 2003, he was terrible. In 6 appearances, he put up a 38 ERA+, 9.6 FIP, and 2.3 WHIP. And after the season, he left as a free agent. In his 24 2/3 innings with the Expos, Drew put up minus .5 WAR. So overall, the Expos got a total of minus 2.1 WAR out of this trade. While Colon was good for them, everybody else on this side just didn't pan out. They were all awful. And most importantly, this move didn't do what it was designed to do: save the Expos. The team was unsuccessful in landing an owner who would keep them in Montreal, and following the 2004 season, they relocated to Washington, D.C. and rebranded as the Nationals. So now we know just how bad this trade was for the Expos. Let's see how good it was for the Indians. Well, Lee Stevens spent the rest of 2002 as the team's backup first baseman, and he was okay. Through 53 games, he hit 5 home runs, 26 RBI, and slashed .222, .285, .379 for an OPS plus of 77 and .3 WAR. Then he left as a free agent. Brandon Phillips made the majors in September of 2002 at just 21 years old. He shifted to second base and he appeared in 11 games, and he was very solid. He slashed .258, .343, .419 for an OPS plus of 105. Phillips won the starting second base job out of camp in 2003. While he was very good defensively, he struggled a lot at the plate. He even had an 0-for-29 stretch that resulted in him being sent down to AAA. He was called back up not long after due to an injury, and he finished the season with a slash line of .208, .242, .311 for an OPS plus of 48 in 112 games. Phillips spent most of the next 2 seasons in the minors, where he demonstrated great speed and bat-to-ball skills. He appeared in 6 games in each of 2004 and 2005. After the 2005 season, Phillips was traded. In his 135 games with the Indians, Phillips hit 6 home runs and 38 RBIs, and he slashed .206, .246, .310 for an OPS plus of 48 and minus .5 WAR. Phillips was sent to the Reds for a player to be named later. Cincinnati sent pitching prospect Jeff Stevens to complete the trade. In hindsight, the Indians gave up on Phillips too early as he developed into a star with the Reds, with 4 Gold Gloves and 3 All-Star selections. Jeff Stevens never reached the majors with the Cleveland Indians. After the 2008 season, he was packaged with fellow pitching prospects Chris Archer and John Gobb, and sent to the Cubs for infielder Mark DeRosa. DeRosa was solid to start 2009 with Cleveland. In 71 games, he hit 13 home runs and 50 RBI, and he slashed .270, .342, .457. Good for a 113 OPS plus and 1.3 WAR. With Cleveland out of the playoff picture, at the end of June they traded DeRosa. DeRosa was sent to the Cardinals for relief pitcher Chris Perez and a player to be named later. In July, St. Louis sent relief pitcher Jess Todd to the Indians to complete the trade. Perez joined the Indians bullpen after the trade, and after the team traded Kerry Wood to the Yankees at the 2010 deadline, he became their primary closer. 2011 was a breakout season for Perez with 36 saves, good for 4th in the AL and an All-Star Game appearance. 2012 was just as good on the mound for Perez with 39 saves, again 4th in the AL, and another All-Star selection, but he was controversial off the field. He often criticized Indians fans for not supporting the team enough as they finished 29th in attendance that year, only ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays. In one of his few bad outings in May, he was booed. In 2013, he took a step back, but was still relatively solid with 25 saves. Off-the-field issues mounted as he was charged with drug possession in June. After a blown save in August, he decided to boycott speaking to the media for the rest of the season. After the season, the Indians decided they were done dealing with Perez and they released him. In 274 appearances with Cleveland, Perez put up 124 saves, a 119 ERA+, and 4.4 WAR. Now, Jess Todd spent most of 2009 and 2010 in AAA, and his limited time in the majors was not very good. In 24 appearances, he had an 0-1 record, an ERA+ of 58, and minus .4 WAR. He was claimed off waivers in 2011. Grady Sizemore debuted with the Indians in July of 2004, and he spent about half the rest of the season in the majors. In 43 games, he hit 4 home runs, 24 RBI, and slashed .246, .333, .406 for a 97 OPS+, and he played pretty well defensively in center field. Sizemore spent nearly all of 2005 as the Indians' starting center fielder. He was supposed to start in the minors, but an injury on opening day to Juan Gonzalez led to him being called up. He batted leadoff and quickly established himself as an up-and-coming star. In 158 games, Sizemore hit 22 home runs, 81 RBI, and stole 22 bases, while slashing .289, .348, .484, good for a 123 OPS+. He also received a down-ballot MVP vote. Before the 2006 season, Sizemore signed a 6-year extension with a club option for 2012. That season, he played in all 162 games, and he was selected to his first All-Star game. He led the majors with 53 doubles, 92 extra base hits, 134 runs, and finished 11th in MVP voting. 2007 was another great year for Sizemore. He opened the season hot by hitting 4 home runs in his first 6 games. He played in all 162 games again. He was named to another All-Star game. He finished 12th in MVP voting, and he won his first Gold Glove. He posted his third straight 2020 season with 24 home runs and 33 stolen bases. Now, Sizemore's streak of playing in 382 consecutive games ended in April of 2008 when he sprained his ankle, but that year he still played in 157 games and he had arguably his best season. 33 home runs, 38 stolen bases, and a slash line of 268, 374, 502, for an OPS plus of 133. He made his third straight All-Star game, he finished 10th in MVP voting, he won another Gold Glove, and his first Silver Slugger. Now, 2009 was Sizemore's first setback. He played most of the year hampered by an injury to his left elbow. His OPS plus dropped to 110, and he only had 18 home runs and 13 stolen bases in 106 games. In September, he had surgery on his elbow and he missed the end of the season. 2010 was worse, and his season ended in June with surgery on his left knee. He returned in April of 2011, and while he played pretty well that season, he missed significant times with injuries to both of his knees, playing in just 71 games. After the season, he re-signed with the Indians, but back surgery and a later knee surgery kept him out the entire year, and he spent all of 2013 as a free agent. He expressed interest in returning to baseball and signed with Boston for the 2014 season. Across his 8 seasons with the Cleveland Indians, Sizemore appeared in 892 games, hit 139 home runs, stole 134 bases, and he slashed 269, 357, 473 for a 120 OPS plus and 27.7 WAR. He remains one of baseball's biggest what-if stories. His performance from ages 22 to 25 was elite, and had he remained healthy, he could have been one of the all-time greats. Cliff Lee was called up to the Indians in September of 2002, when in his first start against the Twins, he carried a shutout into the 6th inning. Lee suffered an abdominal strain in 2003 spring training that kept him out until mid-May, and then he spent about a month in AAA. He was called up for a start at the end of June against the Royals, and he was very good. He pitched into the 7th inning, and the Indians won 10-5. He was sent back down after the game, but he was then called back up in August, and he spent the rest of the year with the team. In 9 starts that year, Lee had a 3-3 record and a 1.22 ERA+. In 2004, Lee made the opening day rotation for the first time in his career. He started the year very strong with a 10-1 record through his first 19 starts, but he struggled in the second half. He finished the year with a 14-8 record and an 80 ERA+ in 33 starts. 2005 ended up being a breakout year for Lee. He won 18 games, leading the AL among lefty pitchers, and broke 200 innings pitched for the first time in his career. Lee received tons of Cy Young votes. He finished 4th. Interestingly, the award went to the guy he was traded for, Bartolo Colon, now a member of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. In 2006, Lee struggled at various points in the season. He gave up 29 home runs, and many of his other numbers worsened. He finished the year with a 14-11 record and a 1.02 ERA+ in 33 starts. Now, he did finish on a high note. He pitched the first 9-inning complete game of his career in his final start. Now, 2007 was unfortunately even worse. He missed the first 6 weeks of the season after straining an abdominal muscle in spring training, and when he returned, he was bad. He was outright bad. Through 16 starts, he had a 5-8 record and a 1.5 whip. In late July, he was optioned to AAA. He used the demotion to work on his pitches, including developing a cutter. He was called up in September, but he was relegated to the bullpen and was left off the Indians' postseason roster. An impressive spring training in 2008 helped Lee win the 5th spot in the rotation out of camp. And he was elite. He entered the All-Star break with a 12-2 record in 18 starts. He was so good that not only did he make the All-Star game, but he was named the starter. He finished the year with a 22-3 record, leading MLB in wins, a 1.67 ERA+, and 6.8 WAR, leading all AL pitchers. He capped the year off with a Cy Young Award win and MVP votes. Lee was named the opening day starter for 2009, the first time in his career. The team as a whole struggled, losing 97 games and finishing 4th in the AL Central, and while Lee was solid, the team entered another rebuild. With a year and a half remaining before free agency, they traded Lee at the deadline. In his 8 years with the Indians, Lee made 178 starts and put up an 83-48 record, a 1.08 ERA+, and 16.1 WAR. Lee was traded with outfielder Ben Francisco to the defending World Series champion Philadelphia Phillies for 4 prospects: pitchers Jason Knapp and Carlos Carrasco, catcher Lou Marson, and infielder Jason Donald. Jason Knapp was viewed as the centerpiece at the time of the trade. Cleveland had said they wouldn't do the trade if the Phillies didn't include the 18-year-old pitcher. At the time of the trade, Knapp was on the disabled list with biceps tendonitis, or so the team thought. He wound up needing multiple shoulder surgeries and was released by the Indians during the 2012 season, without playing an MLB game or even playing above Single-A. Carlos Carrasco was called up in September 2009 and made 5 starts down the stretch for Cleveland. He wasn't great. He had an 0-4 record and a 49 ERA+. He spent most of 2010 in the minors, but was called up again in September and made 7 starts for the Indians, putting up a 2-2 record and a much improved ERA+ of 1.04. In 2011, Carrasco finally made the rotation out of camp, and he struggled a bit with the workload. Through 21 starts, he had an 8-9 record and 84 ERA+. Toward the end of the season, he went down with an elbow injury and he got Tommy John surgery, which ruled him out for all of 2012. In 2013, he came back and he had a rough outing in his return. He gave up 7 runs in 3 2/3 innings against the Yankees. After giving up a 2-run shot to Robinson Cano, Carrasco hit Kevin Youkilis with the next pitch. He was ejected and suspended. After that, he was sent back to AAA and bounced between the rotation, and the bullpen for the rest of the season. In 2014, Carrasco spent time in the rotation and in the bullpen. He made 14 starts and 26 relief appearances, and he put up some very good numbers. He hit career highs in innings pitched with 134, strikeouts with 140, and ERA plus with 153. He slotted back into the rotation full-time in 2015, and heading into the season, he signed a 4-year, $22 million extension with club options for 2019 and 2020. And he was one of the better starters in baseball. Through 30 starts, he had a 13-12 record, 216 strikeouts, and an ERA plus of 119. In July, he took a no-hitter into the 9th inning, giving up a single with 2 outs and 2 strikes. He received down-ballot votes for the Cy Young Award for the first time in his career. In 2016, Carrasco only made 25 starts. He dealt with a couple injuries, the worst of which was a hand fracture in September that forced him to miss the entire run to the World Series. Carrasco returned to form in 2017, leading MLB with 18 wins and striking out a career-best 226 batters. He pitched the second immaculate inning in Indians history in July, striking out the side on just 9 pitches. He finished 4th in Cy Young voting. The award ended up going to his teammate Corey Kluber. Carrasco had another great season in 2018. He struck out 231 batters in 192 innings, and he put up a 17-10 record with a 128 ERA+. After the season, he signed a 4-year contract extension with a club option for 2023. In 2019, Carrasco struggled the first 2 months before being placed on the disabled list. He later revealed he'd been diagnosed with a treatable form of leukemia. He returned in late August, and he spent September in the Indians' bullpen. Carrasco was named the AL Comeback Player of the Year after the season. He returned to the rotation in 2020, and in his 12 starts, he returned to form with a 153 ERA+ and 82 strikeouts in 68 innings. After the season, Carrasco was traded. In his 11 years with the Indians, he appeared in 242 games, and he pitched to an 88-73 record, a 114 ERA+, and 21.4 WAR. Carrasco was traded alongside star shortstop Francisco Lindor to the Mets for pitcher Josh Wolf, outfielder Isaiah Green, and shortstops Andres Jimenez and Ahmed Rosario. Now, Wolf and Green are still prospects. They're both still in the Guardians system, but neither one has reached the majors yet. Wolf is now 23. He spent most of last season in High A. He's been working mostly as reliever, but he's struggled with control. He's walking 7.4 batters per 9 in High A. He's young enough that he has time, but he may never reach the majors. Isaiah Green is now 22. He also spent 2023 in High A, and he also had trouble. In 55 games, he slashed 180, 284, 279, and he only hit 3 home runs. He's also young enough that he has time, but unless he can make a large improvement, he's also unlikely to reach the majors. Now, Jimenez and Rosario are impossible to talk about separately. After the trade, the Indians' coaching staff worked with Rosario to transition him to the outfield, handing the job of starting shortstop to Jimenez on opening day. Rosario struggled with this change at first. He'd only played 3 innings of outfield prior to that season, but he was good at the plate while Jimenez had some trouble. In mid-May, Jimenez was sent to the minors, and Rosario took over as the team's shortstop. Rosario finished the year with a respectable 100 OPS plus and 2 WAR. Jimenez transitioned to second base for the 2022 season, and he broke out. He slashed 297, 371, 466 for a 141 OPS plus in 146 games. He made the All-Star game, won a Gold Glove, and finished 6th in MVP voting. Heading into 2023, Jimenez signed a 7-year, $106.5 million contract extension with a club option for 2030. He regressed heavily at the plate, slashing 251, 314, 399 for an OPS plus of 98 in 153 games. But he was still elite in the field, leading the AL with 2.9 defensive WAR and winning another Gold Glove. Jimenez has put up 13.6 WAR in his 3 years with the Indians and Guardians, and he will be there for several more years. Now, like Jimenez, Rosario had a very strong 2022. He led MLB with 9 triples, and he slashed 283, 312, 403 for a 106 OPS plus in 153 games. And he showed great speed, leading MLB with 35 infield hits. And also, like Jimenez, Rosario took a step back in 2023, but at age 27 and in his final year before free agency, Cleveland chose to trade him instead of extending him like they did with Jimenez. In his 2.5 years with the Indians and Guardians, Rosario put up 5.9 WAR. The Guardians traded Rosario to the Dodgers for a former teammate of his, starting pitcher Noah Syndergaard. Syndergaard was bad with the Guardians. He made 6 starts and pitched to a 78 ERA+, a 7.34 FIP, and minus .1 WAR, and he was released at the end of August. Lou Marson bounced between the minors and Cleveland over the next 5 seasons. He played in 253 games with the Indians, and he was bad at the plate. He hit just 4 home runs, and he slashed 217, 308, 295 for an OPS plus of 72. He was solid enough defensively to produce 1.4 WAR with the team, and then after the 2013 season he left as a free agent. Jason Donald reached the majors in May of 2010 with the Indians, and he bounced between the minors and the Indians for the next 3 seasons. In 170 games, he hit 7 home runs, 43 RBI, and slashed .257, .309, .362 for an 89 OPS plus and 1.4 WAR. After the 2012 season, he was thrown into a massive trade. Donald was traded to the Reds in a 3-team deal that also included the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Indians also gave up outfielder Shin-Soo Choo, the true centerpiece of the deal, along with first baseman Lars Anderson and relief pitcher Tony Sipp. And they received outfielder Drew Stubbs from Cincinnati, and relief pitchers Matt Albers and Brian Shaw, and starting pitcher Trevor Bauer from Arizona. Stubbs spent 2013 as the Indians' primary right fielder, and he was solid depth for the team. He hit 10 home runs, 45 RBI, and slashed .233, .305, .360 for an 88 OPS plus and .9 WAR in 146 games. After the season, he was traded to the Rockies for relief pitcher Josh Outman. Outman was solid out of the pen in 2014. In 31 appearances, he had a 4-0 record, an ERA plus of 121, and .4 WAR. At the waiver deadline in late August, Outman was traded to the Yankees for a player to be named later or Cash, and they ended up sending Cash. Albers spent 2013 in the Indians' bullpen, and he was decent. In 56 appearances, he had a 3-1 record, an ERA plus of 121, and .6 WAR, and after the season he left as a free agent. Brian Shaw also joined the Indians' bullpen in 2013, and he spent the next 5 years there. In 3 of those seasons, he led the AL in pitching appearances with 80 in 2014, 75 in 2016, and 79 in 2017, and he was consistently very good. Through his 378 appearances, he pitched to a 136 ERA plus and 5.4 WAR. Now, in Game 7 of the 2016 World Series, he pitched the top of the 10th inning, and he gave up 3 hits and 2 runs as the Cubs took the lead and eventually won the series. After the 2017 season, Shaw left as a free agent. Bauer was probably the most valuable piece that the Indians got in this trade. At the time of the trade, he was just 21, and he'd already debuted with Arizona the previous season, but he was recovering from a groin injury that had messed with his delivery, and he'd clashed with his teammates at various times and was reportedly very unpopular in the clubhouse. He spent most of 2013 in AAA with 4 major league starts in the first half of the season. He wasn't great with a 1-2 record, an ERA plus of 73, a whip of 1.8, and an awful 8.5 walks per 9 in 17 innings. When rosters expanded from 25 to 40 in September, he wasn't called up. He began 2014 in AAA, where he worked on control. He was called up for 1 start in April, and then he was called up again for good in May. And his hard work had paid off. In his 26 starts that year, Bauer pitched to a 94 ERA+, lowered his whip to 1.38, and most importantly got his walks per 9 down to 3.5. Bauer spent the next few years in the middle of Cleveland's strong rotation, typically slotting in as the number 3 starter behind Corey Kluber and Carlos Carrasco. In the 2016 World Series, he started Games 2 and 5, he lost both of them, and he appeared in relief in Game 7, pitching to the final 2 batters as the Indians lost to the Cubs. In the 2017 playoffs, Bauer was tapped to start Game 1 of the ALDS, and he carried a no-hitter into the 6th inning, breaking an Indians postseason record. Bauer broke out at age 27 in 2018. He'd worked on his slider in the offseason, and he was dominant in the first half, which got him selected for the All-Star game. In August, he took a line drive to the leg and missed most of the rest of the season. He finished the season with a 12-6 record, an ERA plus of 196, and 6 WAR, and he received votes for both Cy Young and MVP. In the 2018 playoffs, Bauer was moved to the bullpen as Cleveland opted to use Kluber, Carrasco, and Mike Clevenger as their starters. In Game 3 of the ALDS against Houston, Bauer appeared in relief, and in the top of the 7th, with Cleveland up 2-1, he committed 2 crucial errors that led to the Astros scoring 3 runs and eventually winning the game 11-3 to finish the sweep. Now, Bauer began 2019 at an elite level with 17 strikeouts and only 1 hit in his first 2 starts. As the season progressed, he picked up a couple injuries. In his 4th start, he partially tore ligaments in his ankle, and when he changed his stance to compensate, he injured his back. At the end of July, Bauer had arguably his worst start of the season against the Royals. He gave up 9 hits and 7 runs in just 4 1/3 innings. After the final runs, which put the Indians behind 7-5, Bauer threw the ball over the center field fence in frustration. That ended up being his final act as a Cleveland Indian, as 2 days later he was traded in a bit of a surprise move. The Indians were on track to make the playoffs again, but Bauer had just a year and a half remaining before free agency, and the emergence of Shane Bieber as another ace had made him expendable. In his 6.5 years with the Indians, Bauer pitched to a 67-53 record, a 113 ERA+, and 16.2 WAR. Now, despite his tantrum, Bauer fetched a pretty large haul. He was traded to the Reds in a 3-team deal, which also included the Padres. Cleveland got back outfielder Yasiel Puig and pitching prospect Scott Moss from Cincinnati, and outfielder Franmil Reyes, utility prospect Victor Nova, and pitcher Logan Allen from San Diego. Yasiel Puig spent the rest of 2019 with the Indians. He was pretty good. He didn't really hit for power, with just 2 home runs through 49 games, but he slashed .297, .377, .423 for a 109 OPS plus and put up .5 WAR. He then left as a free agent after the season. Scott Moss didn't reach the majors with Cleveland. He was claimed by the Phillies off waivers after the 2021 season. Franmil Reyes slotted in as the Indians' primary designated hitter after the trade, and he played parts of 4 seasons in Cleveland. He was generally inconsistent. While he demonstrated great power at times with 30 home runs in 2021, he was prone to swinging and missing a lot. He averaged 1.3 strikeouts per game with Cleveland, and his lack of range in the field meant he was largely restricted to playing designated hitter. His numbers took a huge dip in 2022, and through 70 games he had slashed .213, .254, .350 for 73 OPS plus. Amid his struggles, Cleveland placed him on waivers, and he was claimed by the Cubs. Through 295 games, Reyes put up 1.3 WAR. Victor Nova never reached the majors with Cleveland. He was released partway through the 2022 season. And for Logan Allen, this is an interesting tidbit. For a couple years, the Indians had 2 pitchers in their organization named Logan Allen. One was drafted by them in 2020 and is still with the team. This is the other Logan Allen. This Logan Allen made 4 relief appearances with the Indians across 2019 and 2020, and in 2021, he won a spot in the rotation with an impressive spring training. However, he had trouble with his command, and in May he was sent to AAA. He was called back up at the end of the year, and he split time between the rotation and the bullpen. In 2022, he started in the bullpen, he made 4 appearances and wasn't very good, and he was claimed off waivers by the Orioles in May. Allen finished his time in Cleveland with a 3-7 record, an ERA plus of 80, and minus .6 WAR in 69 1/3 innings. So altogether, we're looking at a whopping 116.7 WAR received by Cleveland in exchange for Bartolo Colon. Some of this is a bit misleading. Jason Donald and Carlos Carrasco were not the centerpieces of their trades, but even just looking at Grady Sizemore and Cliff Lee, Cleveland got 43.8 WAR, and they've been consistently developing prospects into stars, trading them for more prospects, and then turning some of those new prospects into stars again. And the Expos wasted half a year of Bartolo Colon, then gave him away for less than nothing, and then they were forced to move, which is what makes this trade arguably the most lopsided this century. If you enjoyed this trade tree breakdown, let me know down in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to this channel. Keep giving me suggestions in the comments for trades you want to see broken down. I've really enjoyed seeing what everybody wants to see, and it's really helped me plan out the next several trade trees. Up next, I'll be covering the salary dump trade between the Reds and the Dodgers that sent both Matt Kemp and Yasiel Puig to Cincinnati.